$7,000 of the 9, and so because he can only carry forward the greater of $1,000 or 10%, and so in that case, 10% of the package would have been $900 or 10% of 9,000, and so so in this case he could take the greater of 1,000 or 900, so he could roll over $1,000 of that package, but then he'd lose his other $1,000. If that makes sense. So. Yeah, so if you only use 10, if you only use 7, you can roll over 1,000, then that other 1,000 drops off in effect. Okay, well I might just stop it there just to see whether anyone had any questions on the support at home. Right.
With the allocation of the budget between clinical care, etc., is that set in stone with your package, or does it constantly change depending on what comes up next?
Yeah, my understanding is that it can be changed, it can evolve, and because you can also, you're not, like once you go through a provider, you're not locked into a provider, you can shop and change providers, but yeah, within your budget you should be able to change it, because your needs are going to evolve over time. So yeah, no, good question.
Great. I still don't quite understand the 10. If it doesn't cost you anything, but you've allocated 10,000 out of your package, you actually get the 10,000.
Yeah, so effectively the 10,000 or less the 10% provider, so it's really 9,000 a quarter, and so that's your spending money to spend on the package, and you can ultimately choose how you spend the package.
In the clinical care.
That's right. In theory, it could be 100% clinical care, which in that scenario, regardless of your financial status, you wouldn't actually pay anything. Because coming back to the guy in Dolby, he mentioned that when he was going through sort of that change over from the old system to the new system, he said his provider will try and push him more towards some of these other services, the independent support and everyday living away from the clinical care. And he said, well, that wasn't fair, because it was the clinical care was what he really needed, and that ultimately was what was going to keep him in the home for longer. The example, he said, well, my mate next door can mow the lawn, or I've got a lady that does a great cleaning. I can organise those things myself, and chances are you'll be able to do it much cheaper than what the provider will charge. It might be a 6-pack instead of $180 an hour for the mowing. So yes, ma'am.
I have a question about getting the number, the magic number, the assessment. Because I rang up my aged care, it's probably 2 years ago, and they were not interested in us because we're not incapacitated.
Yes.
That's the way it is.
Yeah. Look, that is true. I've heard similar experiences. My mum, she had an assessment done, and they said at the end of the day, you're fine.
So when crunch happens, how quickly?
Even if you are assessed for help, they don't give it to you. Because we've gone through that.
But there's nobody to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly that's the real challenge, isn't it? It's lovely to hear these these packages have been funded, but if there's no one on the ground to provide it. And in regional areas, it's even harder for sure.
If we were Suntown, we could get it immediately.
Once the package is assigned,
yes,
and you've chosen your provider, you then are with Services Australia to be means tested.
yes.
Is there an asset threshold at which you will get 0%?
Yeah, there are. You're right. There is, and because it's income and assets. So you can hit a threshold at which point there's actually no point even disclosing.
But how do we get the threshold? Where does that information come from?
Yeah, look, it's not widely reported. I have seen some numbers, but more so on the residential care. Like if someone has certain assets, certain income above a certain level, then you can actually say, well, you don't even need to, you can choose not to disclose your financial means. To be honest, I haven't heard that exactly on the supported home packages so much.
Does Centrelink have the threshold? Has the government informed them what the
To be honest, I'd be surprised if like the average person in Centrelink would know that. But there are some extra resources, and we'll talk more at the end, as to areas that we can go for extra help. In Toowoomba, you've got your FIS officers, the Financial Information Service officers at Centrelink. Generally, they're more experienced than the normal person on the Centrelink desk. And then there are, I haven't seen any, but I believe there are in some regions, including Toowoomba, they have what an aged care specialist officer, which someone that has a bit more specialist experience in aged care. So that should cover both supported home and residential care. But yeah, that's a very good question. That is something that people will be mindful of. But also, that there'll be, I guess, from our perspective, we can see probably a lot more work in that supported home area. To be honest, to date, we haven't been that involved with clients' home care stuff because there wasn't a great deal for us to do. A lot of providers didn't even charge, didn't on-charge, so they weren't really worried about the means tested side of things. Whereas going forward, I can envisage we'll have more work to do helping people do that initial means test assessment, because it's as complicated to get the means test assessment done for the supported home package as what it is going into residential care. So, and I actually just thinking that through, I'm pretty sure the thresholds will be effectively the same, for both supported home and residential care. But there's going to be a lot of confusion. Well, I know there already is confusion, and that's going to continue, I'm sure, for some time. But I suppose for us it's just trying to get the message, of what information that we do know out. I'm sure there's going to be some hiccups, some hopefully some fine tuning, because coming back to that change from that capping the providers, the 35% fee that they used to charge, down to 10. That's a big reduction from their income point of view. But you can be pretty sure that, and the price list that I touched on earlier, that's where they're going to make the markup. And I think people need to be aware that they shouldn't be coerced or pushed by the care provider to say you should have. I think we should have more of this, because it really should be about what needs that you have.
I was going to say that with the 10% fee, that we've noticed that with the new since the 1st of November, the price that we have to pay per hour for an activity or whatever is gone up amazingly. So they're getting it in that direction.
That's right. What they lose in one, they picked up, and possibly
Yeah.
more. And so, ultimately, whether that sort of pricing mechanism is going to be challenged, questions, maybe some form of government review may come down the track. But I guess all we can really work with is what's here and now. But appreciate the input. Thanks, Rob. All right, let's jump into the